Right, so birthdays. I know, right? Some of you like, yeah, not another birthday conversation.
Yeah.
But this deep dive, yeah, this one's for the people who think birthdays are kind of fascinating. All the different ways we celebrate, what it says about us, how we even see like time and relationships and stuff.
It's true. They really can be a window into a lot of things.
Exactly. And today, we're jumping into this blog post I found, and honestly, it really got me thinking, like how we do birthdays, why we do what we do, and is it all too much sometimes?
I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this blog post.
Well, the blogger keeps their own birthdays super low-key, but they are all about throwing parties for their kids, big ones. So let's see if their thoughts, maybe spark some of your own birthday thoughts too.
I'm always up for a good birthday debate.
Okay, so the blogger starts off describing their last birthday. Imagine this. Close friends, family, homemade cake, dinner, all cozy. And then a walk by the waterfront, peaceful, just enjoying the moment. Sounds pretty good, right?
Definitely idyllic.
Right. And what struck me is how it's all about those, like, quality moments, not expensive gifts or anything. And it made me think about that whole experience gifts thing that's becoming so popular. Like, does a birthday have to be about stuff? Or were we shifting towards something with more, I don't know, meaning?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because on one hand, you have this desire for authenticity, connection, but then on the other hand, you've got this like massive commercialization of birthdays.
Oh, totally. Like all the pressure to have those Instagram perfect parties
Yeah.
or all the birthday stuff you see everywhere all year round. It does make you wonder, like, have we kind of lost the real point of celebrating another year of life?
It's a valid question for sure.
Okay, now the blogger also talks about milestone birthdays, which I thought was interesting. They specifically mention 18 and 21, like how those ages, at least in their culture, they're often about becoming an adult, being independent.
Right, and that totally varies depending on where you are in the world.
Exactly. It made me think, like, what are those big birthdays in your culture, and what makes them so important?
Definitely something to ponder.
Gonna get ready, because we're about to get a little controversial.
Okay.
Kids' birthday parties. This blogger, they are all for them, but, big but, there's a catch.
All right, lay it on me. What's the catch?
So it's not about showering kids with, like, mountains of gifts.
Right.
Their whole point is to create fun, a sense of belonging, lasting memories.
Okay, I'm with them so far.
Right. And they even say these parties can be valuable, like learning experiences, help kids with social skills, sharing, gratitude. Now, I know some people hear kids party and they just picture like sugar craziness and tons of wrapping paper.
It's a common image for sure.
But I do think there's something to what they're saying
Yeah,
about, finding that balance. Celebration, yeah, but not going overboard.
totally. It's tricky, right? You want kids to have that birthday joy, that excitement, but you also don't want to just create like mini materialists who expect tons of stuff.
That's it, exactly.
And it makes me think about how birthdays, they can almost be this like mini version of our whole consumer culture. You see it with the marketing aimed at kids, the pressure to have these huge parties, even the way some people get competitive with the gifts.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's not just kids either, right? Like, haven't we all felt that pressure as adults to, like, buy a bigger gift, a better gift, even if it blows our budget or it's, like, not even something we'd normally do?
It's like this testing ground for our consumerism almost.
It really is.
Now, all of this, it got me thinking about like how we even got to this point with birthday celebrations. The blog focuses on how we do things now, but it's interesting to think about how things evolved over time, what birthdays were like way back when.
Yeah, now you've got me curious, too. So how did we go from, like, ancient rituals to the modern-day party? Did people even celebrate birthdays back then?
You'd be surprised. They did. And believe it or not, the whole idea of celebrating birthdays, it goes back thousands of years. Like in a lot of ancient cultures, birthdays were super tied up with their beliefs, religious stuff, superstitions, all of that.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it went back that far.
Oh, yeah. Like the Egyptians, they held these huge feasts to celebrate pharaohs' birthdays. They thought it would like ensure the pharaoh kept ruling, that everything stayed prosperous. The Romans, they'd make offerings to their gods on their birthdays.
So it was more about, like, the community or the ruler, not so much about the individual person.
Exactly. It was more of a communal thing.
So when did it become more about the individual, like we see today?
Well, it's complicated. It took a long time. But the rise of Christianity, that had a big impact. Early Christians, they actually discouraged birthday celebrations. They thought they were pagan.
Wow, really? So how did we get from that to cake and candles?
Slowly, societal norms changed, cultural influences. Over time, the focus shifted. So, yeah, they'd celebrate saints' birthdays, but also individuals' birthdays started getting more attention. Then, during the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, there was this big emphasis on the individual, on the value of human life. That kind of paved the way for birthdays to become, more mainstream.
Fascinating. So while we're going way back in time, when did we get birthday cake, presents, the whole party thing? Did ancient Egyptians like gather around a cake with candles, singing badly?
Not quite. But the idea of having special food, rituals, that part goes way back. Now, birthday cakes as we know them, they probably started in Germany in the Middle Ages. They had this thing called Kinderfest, a celebration for kids' birthdays.
Kinderfest, I love that. What about presents? Was that always a thing?
Well, giving gifts to mark, important occasions, that's ancient too. But for birthdays specifically, that became more common later on. Around the same time, there was a rising merchant class. People had more access to stuff they could buy. So that made exchanging presents for birthdays a lot easier.
Yeah. And, as societies changed, from like farms and stuff to more industrialized economies, the kinds of gifts people gave, that changed too.
Makes sense. Like gift giving is almost a reflection of, I don't know, the times, what people valued, what they could even get their hands on. So what about now? Like, what do you think drives this whole urge to give and receive presents, especially for birthdays? Is it all just like social pressure? Or is there something, I don't know, deeper going on?
I don't think it's just social pressure. No, there's a whole psychology to gift giving. It's actually pretty fascinating.
Really?
Yeah. Like anthropologists, psychologists, they say gift giving, it taps into our social instincts, the stuff that makes us human. And it helps build those bonds between people. Okay, I can see that. Like when you give a gift that really means something to the person, or when you get one that shows someone really gets you. There's definitely a connection there. It's more than just the thing itself.
Exactly. It's like you're communicating something, care, appreciation. Like you said, it shows you understand the person. It's not just the object, it's the meaning behind it. Almost like social currency.
Social currency, I like that.
Yeah.
That kind of brings us back to what we were saying before about, the birthday gift frenzy, maybe going a bit too far sometimes.
Yeah.
When does it stop being genuine? When does it become about obligation or even like trying to outdo other people?
Yeah, it's a fine line. And I think all the commercial side of birthdays, that's definitely made it worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Like greeting cards. That whole industry is built on this idea that you have to buy a card, even if you're like seeing the person that day.
It's so true. It's like we need that physical thing to show how we feel, even if we could just, say it. I never thought about it that way.
It shows how much businesses have like shaped how we do things, what we expect. And it's not just cards. It's all the party stuff, the fancy cakes, this whole industry that wants us to do more, spend more every single year.
And then there's social media, right? Like all those birthday posts, there's so often these like perfectly staged photos of this amazing party.
Yeah.
It's hard not to feel that pressure. Like you have to have an Instagram-worthy birthday, even if it's not your style or you can't afford it.
It's true. Social media has definitely amped up that pressure to create these, visually stunning, often super expensive celebrations. And that pressure can be like really intense, especially for parents who are planning parties for their kids.
It's interesting. I have this blogger. They're all about like simple things for their own birthday, but then they're totally into throwing these big parties for their kids. What do you make of that? Do you think it's like a contradiction, or are they just seeing those two things differently?
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be that, with their own birthday, they're more comfortable doing what they want. But with kids' parties, maybe there's more pressure to fit in, do what everyone else is doing, so their kids don't feel left out.
Yeah, I get that. You want your kids to have those fun memories with their friends. But it also raises this question of how we teach kids about, like, balance, appreciation, when there's all this birthday hype around them.
Right. It's not about taking away the fun, the party, the celebration. It's more about showing them, that it's not just about the stuff.
Finding that middle ground.
Yeah. Helping them see the thought behind the gift, appreciating experiences, not just things, and realizing that the real celebration comes from, being together, not from having a ton of stuff.
So well said. And speaking of how culture shapes things, the blogger, obviously they're writing from their own perspective, but it makes me wonder, like, how are birthday traditions different around the world?
Oh, that's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down. Birthday customs are so different depending on where you are. Like in some Asian cultures, they don't really do the big yearly celebrations like we do in the West. They focus more on milestone birthdays, like turning 60. That's a really big deal for them.
Interesting. It's like a reminder that, our way of doing birthdays, it's not the only way. So are there any other, like, cultural birthday things that you find really interesting or even surprising?
Tons. Like in some Latin American cultures, there's the quinceañera. It's for girls turning 15. It's this huge coming of age celebration, lots of traditions, dances, the whole works. It's really beautiful, this mix of their heritage and like marking this big step in a girl's life.
I love hearing about these different traditions. It makes you realize how many ways there are to celebrate birthdays and what they can symbolize for different people.
hmm
Are there any cultures that, do the yearly birthday thing completely differently, not just the big milestone ones?
Oh, for sure. Like in some indigenous cultures, birthdays aren't tied to a specific date. They're more about like celebrating as a community, honoring the cycles of nature, that kind of thing.
Wow, that's so beautiful. It's not just about the individual, it's about, connecting to the bigger picture, to the community.
Exactly. And I think that goes back to what we were saying before about finding meaning and balance in how we celebrate. When we look at all these different cultures, it helps us appreciate, all the ways we can mark another year of life.
It really shows that birthdays can be about so much more than just cake and gifts. It can be a time to think about things, connect with people, be grateful. It's about experiencing all the richness and, diversity of being human.
Well said. And with that in mind, I think it's time to maybe shift gears a bit and talk about something else the blogger brought up, but didn't go into too much detail about.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's next on our birthday adventure?
Well, remember how we talked about birthdays being like learning experiences? The blogger mentioned it with kids' parties, but I think it's true for all of us, no matter how old we are.
Now you've got me curious. Tell me more about this whole, birthdays is learning thing. How can we approach our birthdays or our loved ones' birthdays with that kind of mindset?
Think about it. Every birthday, it's like this natural pause button in our lives. It's a chance to think back on the year. What did we do? What did we learn? What can we do better next time? And to think about what we want to do in the year ahead.
Ooh, I like that. It's like a personal growth check-in. We can use it to figure out where we are, where we want to go, not just focus on the party.
Exactly. It's about really thinking about things. We can ask ourselves, like, what did I learn this year? What am I most grateful for? What do I want to focus on next year? What do I want to change?
Those are great questions, and I bet the answers, they change as we get older, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Our priorities change. What matters to us changes. And birthdays, they give us this chance to check in with ourselves regularly, to reevaluate what's important to us and to make sure we're living in a way that matches those values.
Wow, I'm already thinking about my next birthday differently. It's exciting to think about, not just getting another year older, but using it as a chance to, like, grow and try new things.
It's about taking back birthdays, making them about personal growth and self-discovery. And it doesn't have to be a solo thing either. What if we brought that kind of thinking into birthday gatherings with our friends and family?
That was interesting.
Yeah, like instead of just gifts, you could share what you want to achieve in the next year, offer support, encourage each other, or even do things together that are about like growing as people.
I love that. It's like turning birthday parties into these mini personal development workshops. It would be amazing to, like, tap into everyone's experiences and support each other as you go through another year. It would make for much more interesting conversations than just, whose cake recipe is better. Although, I'm not saying we should get rid of the cake entirely.
Of course
Well,
not. Birthdays should be fun. It's about finding that balance, right?
Mm.
Celebration and reflection, sticking with traditions, but also creating new ones that mean something to us.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into the world of birthdays, I hope you're feeling, inspired to maybe rethink how you approach your own birthday. Whether you love a big party or prefer something quiet, remember, it's really up to you to decide what your birthday means.
Very well said. It's about making choices that feel right to you, that fit your values. So as your next birthday comes around, or maybe someone you love's birthday, take a minute to think about how you could do things differently. What would a birthday that really meant something to you look like? What traditions would you keep? What new things would you try? And remember, birthdays aren't just about time passing. They're about celebrating the fact that we're alive.
What a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep celebrating those birthdays in a way that brings you joy, connection, and a sense of purpose.
It really is. It's a great question to think about. Like, if I could redesign birthdays, I'd want to move away from just the party, the presents, and really focus on that reflection, that growth we were talking about. Totally. It's about getting to that deeper meaning, right? Of why we even mark another year. Like, how can we make birthdays more about, I don't know, really discovering who we are, connecting with people on a deeper level? What if instead of getting more stuff, we used birthdays as a chance to like declutter? Get rid of things we don't need and donate them.
Ooh, I like that. It's like turning your birthday into a chance to give back, not just stuff, but your time, your energy. Maybe we could even like have some kind of ritual where you let go of the past year, you know, embrace new beginnings. I'm picturing like a bonfire where you burn away old habits or negative thoughts, symbolically, of course.
No, that's powerful. It really captures that transformation that birthdays can represent. Or imagine like choosing a challenge for the year ahead, something that pushes you, helps you grow. It could be anything, right? Learning a new skill, volunteering, finally starting that creative project you've been putting off.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Can you imagine like getting to your next birthday and knowing you did that thing, you accomplished that goal? It changes the whole getting older thing into something positive, exciting even.
Exactly. It's not about dreading another year. It's about like claiming it, owning it, and making it a year where you become a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be just you either. Imagine bringing that kind of energy into like birthday get-togethers.
Ooh, tell me more.
Yeah, instead of just exchanging gifts, everyone could share their goals for the year. Support each other, cheer each other on. You can even do activities together that help everyone grow.
I am so on board with this idea. It's like turning birthday parties into these mini personal development retreats. It would be so inspiring, right? To tap in everyone's wisdom, their experiences, their support as you navigate, life.
Mm.
And it would definitely be more meaningful than just arguing about whose cake recipe is the best. Although, again, not saying we ditch the cake.
Never ditch the cake. Birthdays should be joyful, right?
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot. Celebration, reflection, honoring traditions, but also like creating new ones that speak to who we are now.
Love it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into birthdays, I hope you're feeling inspired to maybe see your own birthday a little differently. Whether you're all about the big bash or you keep it low key, remember, in the end, what your birthday means is totally up to you.
Beautifully said. It's about making choices that align with your values, what you want out of life. So as you think about your next birthday, or maybe someone you love's birthday, think about what you could do differently. What would make it truly meaningful for you? What traditions would you keep? And what new ones would you create? Remember, birthdays aren't just about time passing. They're about celebrating the incredible gift of being alive.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep celebrating those birthdays in ways that bring you joy, connection, and purpose.